fax, memos, personal meetings, phone. So we have 3 CEOs here who underscore the importance of putting the strategy center stage with the board. We move on to the next recommendation number 3, which is to be transparent with employees. And this is something that was discussed by speakers and panelists earlier today. But being open about what is happening in the company is partly a question of integrity. Employees deserve honesty. And openness helps build trust, respect, and solidarity. And all of that our employees, our people need to stay focused on the job at hand. So we have Edward Green, again, of Tyco International, who says that people will take any hill, walk into the worst situation if they have faith in your leadership and know what your strategy and objectives are. And George Buckley of 3M, CEO of 3M, says that people need to know, especially in challenging times and times of crisis, they need to know that you're on their side. That when they're on the front, fighting in the market, battling in the marketplace, they will not be blamed for things which are beyond their control. They need to have that faith that you trust them. And A.G. Lafley, ex-CEO of P&G, puts a word of caution that in times of crisis, it's easy to say, communicate with the employees, but it's the most difficult to do in times of crisis, because you have investors breathing down your throat. It's their money, they want to know what's happening. Analysts, media, suppliers, retailers, everyone wants explanations in times of crisis. So it's especially difficult to do this, but again, A.G. Lafley underscores the importance of communicating with employees. Our fourth recommendation for the day is about being open with investors and shareholders. And many of our CEOs noted that the time that they spent communicating with investors in times of crisis has exponentially increased. And Ron Sugar of Northrop says that our policy is, if in doubt, communicate. We always conduct our business with integrity and forthrightness. Jay Fishman of Travelers talks about the temptation in many business leaders to sometimes present an over-optimistic, always try to present an over-optimistic outlook for the business. And he cautions us, and he says, now is not the time to tell people not to worry. And he says, be specific. You gain credibility that way, and you gain support from your investors that way. And Michael Jackson of AutoNation talks about reinforcing the long-term approach, with the investors. So many investors can get very short-term minded, especially in times of crisis, and they need that reinforcement from the business leader, from the CEO, that in order to be able to keep the vision on the long term. The next point that the fifth recommendation that we brought together was to build and protect the culture. And we know that good companies are not just about great bottom lines, but they're also about great cultures and having values that bind people together. And Eric Foss of Pepsi Bottling talks about building and protecting the culture. He says, stay focused on the culture, people, and values. It's the areas most likely to be compromised in this environment. Michael Jackson, again, of AutoNation, talks about how he battled against the growth at any cost culture in order to protect the values. in a time of crisis. And A.G. Lafley again underscores and emphasizes this point. He was asked by a media representative of the media who asked him whether P&G had adopted a very inward-looking strategy in the time of crisis. And he said, "Take trust. We only ever talked about it in relation to employees. But what matters most now is that consumers trust our brand, that shareholders trust our stock, that customers trust us to be the best supplier, and suppliers trust us to be the best customer." And finally, Dr. Manama has changed his seat position, so that's a call for me to wrap up here. But luckily, we're on the last recommendation of the day, which is that we would like to end with a positive note, keeping faith for the future. I think, as hard as it may be to believe today, we must not forget that we are in the middle of the valley of an economic cycle. And in the future, we will see more promising horizons in the marketplace. So the essential question then becomes that we must balance the now with the then, today with the future. And we have George Buckley again here from 3M, who talks about this. And he says, if you don't invest in the future and don't plan for the future, there simply won't be one. A.G. Lafley emphasizes innovation as the central strategy in a time of crisis. He acknowledges that innovation is difficult in time of crisis. Resources are limited, and innovation is very resource hungry. But he says that in order for the company to come out of the recession strong, innovation is the central cornerstone strategy. And finally, Bill Nutty, CEO of NCR, talks about being careful not to cut those parts of the company which are going to get you to your long-term future. It's tempting to put through transformational exercises everywhere, get those cuts in, but be careful not to cut the very future of the company. So with that note, I'd like to conclude my presentation. I hope that this has been useful. Thank you very much.
A special thank you to you, Mr. Abbas, particularly for the outstanding contribution and the support that you have given Nutshell in organizing this international conference. In dissecting the subject of leading the turnaround, Mr. Abbas very effectively defined the Chief Executive Officer's role in leadership of an organization, and he left behind for your serious consideration a 6-point plan for global leaders. And above all, one thing that really struck me was a profound thought that he mentioned during his presentation, which was facing reality. He emphasized was not something which is simple. You can get into a state of self-delusion, is what you said, sir, and that would lead to very unrealistic conclusions. These are danger areas, sensitive areas that young managers of today must take cognizance of and see that they take preventive measures. The next speaker is a very popular personality, well known to most of you. He is Mr. Khurram Rahat, Managing Director, Teradata Pakistan, and he will present and give you his perspectives on leveraging your talent to drive business outcomes. With another thank you to you for the support you have given Nutshell, sir. The platform is now yours.
Dr. Manama, fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Assalamu alaikum. I hope I am audible to people sitting in the corners, because since adjusting to the technology. Is it better now? Okay, great. Lord Emerson said, "Not gold, but only men can make a nation deep and strong." I think that's the crux of what the topic I'm going to present, because it is the people, not the organizations. It is, as they say, the man behind the gun, which matters. And this is something which is the focus of my, interaction with you over the next few minutes. History is actually full of instances where, and I'll draw an analogy from wars or battles, where very small-sized armies were able to beat much bigger opponents. And it was not the technology, it was sheer passion, the belief, and the unity among those small number of people who managed to defeat very large armies which outnumbered them. A classic example is the Battle of Badr, where it was, more than 1:3 ratio. So that speaks all about what it takes for anyone to be world beater, what it takes for any organization to succeed. I've talked about nations. The same is true for organizations, the same is true for corporates, because it is the people in those organizations, it is people like you who are running those organizations, who are working day in, day out, that make the difference. It is not the technology. You can have the best technology in the world, but if you do not have the right people with the right attitude and the skill set, that technology is not worth more than junk. In fact, I don't know how many of you have seen this photograph of the new A380 Airbus, which was going to be handed over to Emirates, and their pilots just ran, as they were taking it out, ran it against a wall. That's a classic case of having the best technology but not the right people. Where do you end up? I think when we talk about people, and in today's competitive world, we always, and we've heard Rupert Murdoch talk about the fact that in today's competitive era, it's not the big which will eat the small, it is the smart which will overtake the slow. And how do you become smart? You become smart because of your people. You become smart because of the people who are there, who share a common vision, who share the passion to succeed. And that's where we all talk about leadership. Imran Khan Sahab was here talking about making the change. Absolutely, the leaders are important, but I think the most important thing is that those leaders, even they need people to follow them, to share their vision, to share the passion, to succeed. And that's key for any organization. And when you have your mind put to it, when you want to achieve something, then absolutely there is no way you can fail. And I'll give you example. When we talk about quality, which countries come to your mind? Japan, US, Germany. When we talk about outsourcing, which countries come to your mind? India, okay? So if I tell you that, and that's where all the multinationals are looking at. If I tell you that my company, which is an American company, US-based company, when it started looking to have its offshore consulting excellence organization, and they chose, 8 years ago, they chose Pakistan as the country where they would base. It was not because of Pakistan had very strong economic, activity going on. It was not because Pakistan had